You're listening to
They're going to call it a hard foul. They're going to call it a hard foul.
We're recording this on Thursday early evening after the Celtics blow victory over the Chicago Bulls, I'm sorry, in which Kristaps Porzingis tied his career high with 8 3-pointers, and he's really continued his sound play. Before we get going, Mike, we should probably just I know this is a basketball Celtics pod, but just to recognize the 70 souls lost in the plane crash in Washington, D.C. last night. Obviously, our thoughts go out to the families, and our thanks to the first responders dealing with a very difficult situation. It always makes you pause and reflect on what's important in life when these things do happen. So, but to basketball, Mike, to basketball, it is the Celtics are consistently inconsistent, I guess, is what we're seeing. And we're still seeing late game kind of opportunities slip away. We haven't talked to you all since the Celtics came back from the 3-1 West Coast trip. And since then, like I said at the top of the pod, they blew out the Bulls, but they floundered an opportunity against the Houston Rockets late. Another close and late loss that just kind of slipped away from them when the opportunity to win the game was there. So, Mike, I said a mouthful. I'm going to kick it over to you. You can pick it up from wherever you want to go, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, I felt really good leaving that West Coast trip in a game they really dominated in Dallas. It was a great way to end the trip. There was a lot to like in that game as far as Derek White getting over the hump and shooting the ball well. Team was defending, getting out, rebounding, responding to runs, because Dallas did have a couple in there where they look like they might be able to get back in it and kind of shutting it down. So I was texting you and just saying, this is a good way to end the trip. And as a reminder, last year, they had a little struggle in January, not quite like this year. And then February and March, they really went bananas. Forward to. And, 2 or 3 minutes into that fourth quarter against Houston, I was really starting to feel that way. Like, okay, here we go. They do look kind of locked in. And then they had that 12-point lead with 9 minutes left, and they went on to score 11 more points for the rest of the game. I think that's everything you need to know about that game. I know you and I disagree as the severity of the loss. I think it's a horrible loss at home. I know you probably respect Houston's ability more than I do. I certainly respected Ime's game plan of getting the ball out of Tatum's hands for the majority of that game, other than the third quarter. Putting a really high elite defender alone on Jaylen Brown and seeing if the Celtics and Brown would be able to beat them. I thought that was a really good game plan if you have the guys to do it. Houston certainly does. But I think the Celtics blew that game. I think they missed a ton of open shots. They missed free throws. They didn't stop Houston from getting into the paint at all. There wasn't a lot of good defense in the fourth quarter, mental errors. And it was, to me, one of the more frustrating losses I felt in a while, because I was in the place of, like, they look really good right now. They've looked really good for the majority of this game outside of the first quarter. And, the Bulls game, Jim, there's not a ton to talk about.
Let's stay on Houston. Stay on Houston.
Yeah,
so I don't feel the exact same way. I feel that way. I am with you the last 2 minutes of that game. I think up until that last 2 minutes of that game, I think there was a lot that kind of happened that, you can look at and say, okay, what's his name? The guy that hit 10 threes. Why am I drawing a blank on his name?
Dillon Brooks.
Dylan Brooks. Goes out from 10-3. They weren't all open either. They were contested. It was just one of those weird games. Amon Thompson is a good player. He is, like, for the season, like 40% from inside the 3-point arc for those long twos. He was basically perfect. They play great, those two guys. So you tip your cap. The Celtics they were pretty shorthanded. They were without Horford, Hauser, and White. There were times where you had Springer on the floor with Cornette and Drew Peterson, or Tillman played some minutes that game, so you had really non-offensive players on the floor, and it just made it really easy to implement Ime's game plan. It was a good game plan, but it wasn't like rocket science to figure out based on the personnel the Celtics had out there. And sometimes, sure, they had a really good defender on Jaylen Brown. In the last 2 minutes, they just didn't cover Jaylen Brown, and he didn't make them pay. So I look at that game up until those last 2 minutes, and I know they had a 12-point lead, and I know the Rockets went on 11-0 run to get back into the game. But I thought during a lot of those instances, the Celtics got pretty decent shots. Tatum made the right read. I mean, there were some mistakes. Tatum made a bad pass on the oop that led to a fast break. The whole thing between Cater and Cornette of like playing hot potato with the ball 4 feet from the basket when neither one would shoot, that led to points on the other end. I think a 3-pointer by the Rockets. But at the same time, I can't really get worked up about Cater and Cornette not converting because they're not typically guys that are out there in the fourth quarter. The last 2 minutes is what bothered me because it's a continuation of what we've spent a lot of time on this pod talking about over the last couple weeks, where they're just not finishing games and they're finding new ways to lose. In this one, it was Jaylen Brown having 2 wide open 3-pointers where Tatum made great reads out of double teams or sometimes triple teams to get him the ball. There was one instance where it looked like the guy that was open was Pritchard on the foul line, extended 3, the above the break 3. And Thompson thought he had Tatum tricked and was ready to pick off that ball. Tatum read it perfectly and hit Brown wide open in the corner. Like there was no one 10, 15. They would treat him like Springer almost in that instance. Brown missed. He missed another above the break. Holiday missed above the break 3. And then, to be honest with you, I thought Porzingis passed up a couple shot opportunities late in that fourth quarter. At least one where he had an above the break 3 opportunity. And his foul trouble really took him out of the game and took his aggressiveness out of the game. And that foul trouble's on him. I thought Tatum was brilliant, even in those last 2 minutes. I thought he was brilliant the entire second half. I think he had 19 points in the second half. He only had 4 in the fourth quarter, but I felt like he made every right read, including those last 2 minutes. And then you have defensive breakdowns. Cornette letting Segun go backdoor for a dunk with 15 seconds left to put them up 2. And then Tatum came back and got a layup to tie it. And then in the very next possession, you have Brown and Cornette switching their men mid-possession, where the ball's being inbounded. And it allows for a Thompson uncontested, 5-foot shot. Like neither one of those shots at the end for the Rockets were difficult. They weren't even contested at the end of the game. So I kind of see the first 46 minutes as they were grinding it out and they put themselves in a position to win, and they should have won. Their best players had wide open looks. They got what they wanted. They couldn't have better looks. And then they had completely ridiculous defensive breakdowns when they could have at least brought the game to overtime. So
they didn't execute.
That's the part that frustrates me is the last 2 minutes. The first 46, I actually thought under the circumstances of Porzingis being in foul trouble, the guys being out, the way Tatum was being guarded, they handled themselves well. But it's been the same thing, Mike. It's just the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, the end of the game execution is a real problem for this team. We've been saying it over and over again. And those last 2 minutes and those last 2 possessions in particular were not good. Also, I don't think it's acceptable for this team to give up a 13-0 run in the fourth quarter, to go scoreless for close to 4 minutes in the fourth quarter of a game. there's too much talent out there. Tatum and Brown were on the floor. They got guys out there. It's just we see it. It happens a lot. They're just not. They're just not playing consistent basketball.
Yeah, no, I'm with
Overall,
you. They shouldn't do that, but I feel like they were still in position to win. Like I feel like there was just an event in the game, and they were still in position to win. It shouldn't happen, but I don't think it was the reason they lost. I think the reason they lost was those last 2 minutes. But
yeah, I didn't think
that's
that
my takeaway.
the way they've been playing when they blew that lead. I was in a position. I didn't think they were going to win. I was just waiting for it to fall apart. Like here we go again is how I felt in the middle of that run. And then when Joe used up that challenge, so he didn't have timeouts at the end of the game, and they showed the other angle on that foul where it was an obvious foul.
Yeah.
Oh, what a mistake! And then once again, not sitting Tatum at all, like at all. He played basically the whole 30 and fourth quarter. There was no rest in between. Um, Obviously Tatum made some big plays at the end of that game, but I don't think that's a sustainable way to go after these games.
No, no, I don't. I agree with you there, but I will say on this one, I don't think it hurt them. I thought he still played a really well in the fourth, the entire fourth, outside that one turnover.
And then Brown, Holiday, and maybe it was Porzingis. I forget the stat I saw, but they like combined for like something like 3 for 12 in the fourth quarter. I thought Brown was horrible in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, no, but Mike, they over the last 340 of the game, outside of those two layups at the end, the dunk and the layup in the end of the Rockets, they scored once. The Rockets, they scored on a Dylan Brooks three.
That was a big three.
You know, but the Celtics had so many opportunities between then. It was always a one possession game. And those
Yeah,
last 340, they we're talking about those three missed, 3 pointers. And then you had that possession with Brown where he just like dribbled around and forced the ball into the middle of the paint and didn't get a good shot off,
yeah.
which made no sense because if they given the every time they gave the ball to Tatum, they got a great look. Or they
And there was a
passed up a
couple.
great look.
There were a couple
So like
instances where
his play was just awful in those
there
last
were a
moments.
couple instances where Tatum, double team came to him. He had to get rid of the ball, and he went to Brown. And because the double team was with Tatum, Pritchard was wide open in the corner, but Brown has his head down. He's not looking up. He just didn't seem to be looking to try to get other guys involved in that fourth quarter. But
Well, yeah, and one of them he ended up going to the free throw line. He got bailed up, but one of them was he was basically him his whole possession. He dribbled it to the middle of the paint
I remember
and
that.
missed a shot. And then the other two shots he should have taken. They were wide
Oh,
open
those are wide
threes.
open threes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But he's got to hit him. He's got to hit one of them. He hits one of them, they win.
Well, yeah, yeah. That's what I mean. He wasn't good. I mean, that was the first time this season. I think I yelled at the TV, and he was bringing the ball up, and I was just like, "Pass the fucking ball! Like, come on!"
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a tough loss. Brown responded. I think he played great last night
Yeah.
against Chicago. He played a really good game. His comments after the game, I thought, were good too, where he's just saying like, there's ebbs and flows to this, and we
Of
know we got to
course.
get better. But yeah, they got to get better. They got to get better, man. They got to start. I'm like desperate for them to string a winning streak together and to look good doing it. Last night was really hard to judge. That's not the same Bulls team I feel like they've played this season. That Bulls team seemed a little dead to me. I don't know about you, but it seems like they need to finally blow up that roster.
Yeah, but I did think the Celtics played with really good energy, and they
They
typically do
did.
coming off the loss. I thought they made a lot of, again, really good reads out of the Tatum double team. I really appreciate Tatum not forcing his offense all that much. He took maybe one or two threes where you kind of, why are you doing that? But I think he's continually making really good reads. And last night you saw them get a lot of wide open shots off the second pass. He'd make that pass to the middle, and then there'd be a wide open guy in the corner. And there was just a ton of that last night. Mike, have you seen So this is kind of new, and maybe it's because Hauser's out and Horford's out, and they've had multiple guys out. But I just don't remember over the last two seasons this type of looks that Tatum is seeing consistently throughout the games, where they are sending back to back games just aggressive traps at him, like almost at half court, um, doing everything and anything to get the ball out of his hands.
Yep.
Do you remember, like, particularly just last two games, seeing the amount of looks like this that he's getting right now?
No, I mean that was Ime's game plan, and I think Chicago probably saw it and thought it worked.
Yeah,
Um, because Tatum, even after the game, he talks about that he's going to make the right play, and that's what
yeah.
he does. He makes the right play, he makes the right pass, and so it's putting a lot of pressure on other guys. You do this last year against the Celtics, you're going to lose by a lot. This year against the Celtics, I think you got a shot at winning because these guys haven't been consistent enough to beat you.
Yeah,
Uh,
maybe.
outside outside of Porzingis, just the shooting in general by this Celtics team, it's been pretty inconsistent if their name's not Jason
And
Tatum or Peyton Pritchard.
it's been a little better lately. The shooting, I think outside of that one loss to LA, has gotten better. I do think too, in that going back to that Houston game, kind of just even thinking about it out loud right now, that Porzingis foul trouble really hurt them because he was cooking early, just like he was in Chicago. And then,
Uh-huh.
him having to go to the bench like that, I almost wonder if, you know, he doesn't pick up his third early, he doesn't pick up that fifth in the third quarter, and he stays consistently out there, what that if Houston would have been able to stay in that defense.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But they stayed in that defense with him in the game at the end of that game.
Well, I thought his aggressiveness was lost. So they
Yeah.
stayed at it and he was not the same player.
Oh.
That was just me. Why? I mean, there was one play that it really stood out. There was late in the game, kind of an above the break three situation. It was where Holiday ended up taking an open one, but he was, 29 feet out. No one was around him, and he passed it immediately.
Yeah, it's interesting because with Tatum, you play a defense like that, I guess it puts a lot of pressure on him to make the right read every play, but also when he gets his opportunities, they're more limited that he has to hit them. And obviously, he hasn't shot the ball great these last two games, but um, in those situations, I think more than Christoph Porzingis, that's when Brown really has to be efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Dylan Brooks is going to give you trouble, and you're not going to be able to easily get your shot off, you got to be a playmaker and get other guys involved. Because
Dylan
if they're
Brooks was
doubling,
giving him trouble in those last 4 minutes. No one covered Jaylen Brown. No one covered him.
well, when he was trying to drive to the hoop and
Yeah.
he was getting stuck in the paint, it was because it was good defense on him.
Yeah, but I
Um,
mean, that was one possession. Outside of that, they were not covering it. He did not make them pay when there was no humans around him for about 7 feet.
yeah.
That's pretty bad.
And he didn't make the reads. There were guys open, and he
Yeah.
didn't pass it to them. So, we'll see what happens with that. Brown, obviously, with all the attention Tatum got last year, especially in that NBA Finals, was really able to carry the team offensively with scoring, while Tatum was doing a lot of other things. And I would suggest if I was game planning against the Celtics that we need to force Jaylen Brown to be the NBA Finals MVP again and get the ball out of Tatum's hands as much as possible. As good as Brown is, that would be my way of trying to beat the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, and the other guys were contributing at a higher level, obviously, too. White and Holiday was fantastic in those playoffs last year.
Big
And you
time.
saw what, White was able to add yesterday, as last night he was shooting the ball well again. And
Well, you saw it in Dallas.
yeah. And
Yeah.
last night was kind of more of a continuation of that. I do
Yep.
think so. If we're going to look at like a glass half empty, I think their offense is starting. You're starting to see signs that they're coming out of this. They're starting to
Of
shoot
course, because
better.
Derek White's playing well.
Yeah, and the way Porzingis is shooting, Brown has been more aggressive offensively. I know we've hammered him for that Houston game, but on the whole, I thought he's been more aggressive, trying to find his shot and score. Um, there were
Yeah.
two games. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I'm just saying, yeah, you're right.
Both Dallas and Chicago, they were better with Tatum off the court. So there are signs that they're starting to come out of this. But at the same time, they need to execute in these close and late situations. Again, it was a situation they weren't in the lead, but they weren't down either when they blew this. They weren't down when Brown missed those threes. They weren't down when they had the defensive screw ups against Segun and Thompson. The game was tied. This wasn't like a desperation. I need a steal. Like, what was Cornette even overplaying him for? Why are you overplaying
Man,
Segun 29 feet from the basket?
yeah, that whole thing was nuts, and I just again I wish Tillman didn't suck so much because these would have been possessions for him. That last possession, I was questioning like, should Springer be in the game right now and not Cornette? When Cornette was out along the 3-point line and switching with Jaylen
Yeah.
Brown, like they felt like so messy, but Joe didn't have timeouts, so
Well,
um,
he could have put him in at the timeout that Houston took or right after the foul. I think he was afraid of Thompson doing exactly what he did, maybe getting Springer down. I mean, he's Thompson's way bigger than Springer. So he like Springer can't really defend his shot without fouling him if Thompson gets put in position. The guy that I was kind of more surprised that he didn't go with late defensively because he has made this substitution in other games was I just think Cade is a better defender. I think he has better feet. I don't think he makes the same mistakes that he was making earlier in the year. Maybe he just doesn't trust him yet in that situation. But I
yeah,
I, I think he's
that or
better than
Jordan
Cornette
Walsh,
in
right?
those. What's that?
That or Jordan Walsh, like somebody.
Jordan Walsh, yeah, that makes some sense. It does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, Houston's wings were playing great, and the other thing that happened too is the reason I didn't bring him up is because I can't remember his name, and he's one of my favorite players in the league. Their shooting guard. Why can't I remember
Jalen
his
Green?
name? Yeah, he started playing well in the fourth quarter, and he sucked the rest of the game.
Yeah, he didn't really do much and Segun didn't really do much. It's funny. I feel like Segun they figured out in the same way they figured out Bam Adebayo that
Yeah,
our guys are so long that we just contest them late and it's going to bother them.
yeah, but
Because
Green had that
Segun has
and
been like a
one.
non-factor since the first quarter, the first time they played.
Yeah, Green got that and one in the fourth, and suddenly you had Brooks hitting three, and you had Green and Thompson that could both get to the basket whenever they wanted. It was kind of Houston really took that game over. I mean, they outscored the Celtics the last 9 minutes of that game, 25 to 11
But they
for the
didn't
last
score.
nine
They
for the last
didn't
nine
score the
minutes.
last 4 minutes outside of those two. That one 3-pointer and then those two blown coverages. They didn't score. Like the
Well, that's
game
the
was
problem with
there.
the Celtics only scoring 11 points.
I know.
They
Well,
had
yeah, well, that's
opportunity
my
after
point.
opportunity to put them away, and they didn't.
The Celtics in that span should have had double-digit points with the looks they got, and they didn't.
Yeah.
That was the difference. Is the Celtics scored, I think, 6 points or whatever. Two
Houston's a
Tatum
scary
layups and
team because, like, they defend at such a high level. They're the type of team that, out of anybody that should be making a trade at this deadline, it should be them to bring in some more offense.
yeah,
Because they can't win without it. They need something, whether it's a veteran scorer on a team that's looking to let a guy go, because they are good. They're well coached and they play the right way. They play hard. It's just I think they lack. You didn't really see it in this last game, but overall, I think they lack the offense to win a championship.
yeah. I think you just got to be really smart nowadays on how you do it. So you got to ask yourself, like, would this player get over the top to win a championship, or is he just going to add our salary and start our clock a lot faster than we wanted to in terms of
Yeah,
getting into that
of
tax?
course, of course, you gotta.
Because and if the answer is he won't help us win a championship, you're probably better off waiting to the off season when there's more available. It's
Does
unfortunate, but that's the way it is now.
does Laurie marketing help them? Because
I
that's a
I
guy I was
don't
thinking about.
I think Laurie Markkinen's a fine to really good player, but I don't see him as a 1A on a championship team or a 1B. I just don't.
What about the Darren Fox?
I don't know about him. I don't know
Because
what
those rumors have
motivates
been
him.
out
He
there.
sounds like he's only going to go to San Antonio too.
He picks it, like out of all the places on planet Earth,
Yeah,
he
that's a
wants to live
rumor.
in San Antonio,
Well, I don't think it's living there. I think it's probably who he'll be playing with
playing with.
next. Yes.
Yeah, but that's like I heard from Charles Barkley. It's like only fat women there. He says it all the
These guys
time on
have the money to
TNT.
go anywhere they want in the world. I don't think that's really an issue. You know,
You
it's
ever
like
hear
they'll
Charles
talk that.
Barkley talk about the women in San Antonio? He
Oh,
says they're the ugliest women in the NBA all the time.
yeah. So I think, when he looks at the
Charles
coaching and
Barkley's
all
the
that.
only person on earth, him and Shaq, the only people on earth that can't get canceled. They can say
Yeah.
whatever they want, I think.
So yeah, it sounds like he just wants to go to San Antonio. I don't know if he would agree to a trade, but to somewhere else. His agent is the same agent as Antonio Davis, so it has a lot of the same similarities that kind of happened in that situation where he had one spot in mind.
But he's still playing. Like he hasn't quit on his
He
team.
hasn't quit on his team. No, no,
Yeah. He's
no.
not
So
like he's not like the guys down in Heat culture.
yeah, that whole situation. If we're going around the league right now, it's kind of nuts, right? Because you have the Terry Rozier. Mike, you want to bring people up to date on what's going on with Rozier?
Um, what's going on with Rozier or Jimmy Butler? Rozier?
Yeah, go Rozier. That's more interesting.
So it was the Pelicans and Rockets. Sorry, he played for the Hornets. It was the Pelicans and Hornets game. He's getting investigated by federal agents, right, for possibly betting on prop bets. So I'm assuming when I hear prop bet, maybe like his own statistics.
Yeah, so
Um, yeah,
the so they're saying like he like changed the way he played essentially. So I want to get the proper verbiage here.
see, I assume that because if you're doing a prop bet, you're betting on how many points you're scoring, how many rebounds you're getting. Those are the kind of things. Like I've done prop bets a lot, and it's always like over under 3 assists for some random dude. So I feel like that you can be in more control over if you're a player. Like I'm gonna bet the under, and I'm gonna suck balls.
Yeah, and
And
that's what
nobody's
they
gonna
say.
notice because I play for the Hornets.
The term that's being used out there is manipulated his play. So
Yeah.
I do wonder if he like kind of threw in the towel. You got a Black Sox situation where he's throwing in the game or his own performance on purpose. And anytime you hear that, you really have to start thinking, okay, are there other people involved here? Does he owe people
Yeah.
money?
I start
Or
thinking, what's the criminal element?
yeah, yeah. So like the NBA did say they investigated this and didn't find anything.
Hmm.
Um,
So then why is it at the federal level?
Well, the feds seem to have a disagreement here with the NBA.
Yeah.
So that is being investigated, and
Christopher Maltasanti was going to like all the Charlotte Hornet games.
Tone, I told you, Rozier is good. He's good. He's throwing the game under 4 assists guaranteed. Tone.
Tony gets all mad at Carmella because she didn't take the money on her spec house to throw it down on Terry Rozier to score under 15 points.
Yeah,
And he guaranteed her that it was a guaranteed bet, $1 million bet, and she didn't do it.
I know. I know. Yeah, so you have the Rozier situation, then you have obviously Jimmy Butler.
He culture, man. He
Yeah.
culture.
That's suspended indefinitely. Who knows how that's going to end up as a trade? I mean, Phoenix is rumored, but if you're Phoenix, what's the point? You're a 500 team. Like, do you think this is really? You've already tried Durant with Booker and then Bale. You think this is going to do it?
And if you're Miami, you're licking your chops thinking, you're really going to give me 3 first round picks for
I
this? All
know.
right.
I
I mean,
know.
that's a no-brainer now if you're Pat Riley. If somebody's giving me 3 first-round picks for Jimmy Butler right now,
I know.
like you have to say yes.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I feel like Riley's just gonna take what's available. I can't imagine a lot is being offered up for
I
him
can
at this
imagine
point.
the other part of Pat Riley is like, I'm not doing shit. I'm not moving you anywhere.
Well, Pat Riley, the Irishman that likes to cosplay that he's an Italian, um, and sits up there looking like a mob boss. He's a fucking idiot too.
Well, there
Uh,
are a lot of Irish mob bosses. I guess they just dress different.
yeah, but he likes to protect his whole look. Like he wishes he was Italian. Um, yeah. So outside of that, you hear the rumors with Vucevic. Maybe he'll be on the move. Valenzuela over in
Yeah, I
the
mean,
Wizards. I don't know.
Vucevic is like a guy that would, do great for a lot of teams, but it's just so hard to make trades in the NBA. Like,
It
he's the
really
type
is.
of guy before this stupid CBA that would go somewhere and
And
make an
then
impact.
you have Zach LaVine. So I think if
Another
you're a
one, like, how do you even trade for Zach LaVine?
I think if you're a Celtics fan and you're like looking to see if they're going to do anything minor at all, like, sell a player to somebody essentially, that has cap space and, you give up a second and maybe they give you back a protected second. Um, it's going to happen right at the deadline if that happens because all
Yeah,
these other moves are going to have to happen first. So the team's caps are in order and they can't afford to probably make a trade like that until they know this is happening or not happening. So, as far as Celtics go, I'm just assuming that you're not going to find out. It's going to be one of these. If the Celtics do anything at all, it's probably going to be after the deadline that you actually find out.
yeah, signing Isaiah Thomas from the G League,
He had
dropping
40.
40.
Yeah, he had
Good
40.
for him. He every year he finds an NBA team for like a 10-day contract. It's
Yeah,
pretty impressive when you think about it.
yeah, no, good for him. I mean, he'll never make up the money lost.
No, he sure won't, but
No, he
that's
definitely
that's
won't.
uh that's tough. Um I was just gonna say something about the Celtics with that. They have an extra roster spot, right? So they have a roster spot that's not filled.
Yeah.
So that'll probably. I wonder if they're thinking like there's a guy on their two-way, maybe like JD Davidson. Sounds like he's playing really well. Maybe he earns a contract in the year or something.
Yeah, I don't think
Um,
he'll ever get that contract.
yeah, so maybe there's nobody like that this year. I don't know if they fill that spot. Um, it's going to be hard for them to make a trade. It just is. This is the team they have to win with right now.
Yeah, and it's good enough. It's
Yeah,
good enough, and
yeah.
I am encouraged by different things. And these next few games, we'll learn
Now
some things.
Cleveland's rumored to be in some stuff.
Yeah, they have been. Yeah,
Yeah. Now I think they're the type of team that they're not in that apron, right? Where they can match contracts to get a like they can combine contracts to make a trade. I think
I'd have to look at what they are exactly.
because some of the guys they're rumored for, they're big contract guys. It's not small.
Yeah, so they are. Keep talking, Mike. I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, because I could have sworn I may have saw it's all wings. Like it's
So
all
they have 4 million before they get into the first apron.
so then they're
So
allowed to combine contracts to make a trade.
yeah, they are.
Oh, that's pretty scary.
Yeah,
To think about if they could take like a Max Struess and a who's that guard that comes off the bench for them?
Karis LeVert.
Karis LeVert.
Yeah.
I think right there you're close to 29 million.
Yeah,
Um,
that's between the two of them. It's so Levert's making 16 and a half and Strauss is so it's like 32 million.
32 million.
Yeah.
I mean, if they really wanted to, I don't. I mean, there's probably some guys out there they could go after. That I'm trying to think of the wings that I saw. I can't remember, but they weren't. They were real. Like they were good players that they were looking at.
Yeah, they've been involved in a few rumors. Let me just look them up here.
So I'm thinking of the bad teams. Like I know the Wizards don't have a wing. I'm pretty sure nobody wants Kyle Kuzma. A story just came out about him. I don't think anybody on the Wizards likes him. He doesn't fit in. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened to him with the Lakers too.
Well, there's been talk about Cam Johnson going to the Cavs, which would be a
That's the guy.
really
He'd be a
nice
good
move.
fit.
Yeah, he'd be a really nice move to them. So, yeah, no, I'm sure they're going to be involved in different names and maybe some guys that they can bring over. I wonder if they look at what Chicago has on their roster and see if they can peel anything off of that. But
I
yeah,
don't know
for
what
sure.
fits. I don't know what from Chicago
Yeah,
fits.
I don't
Yeah.
either. Yeah, so we'll wait to see on the trade deadline, Mike. The Seas, they got, the Pelicans tomorrow night, who, took them to the wire the last time. I think it's the
Pelicans in a bad way, 4-game losing streak. This might be a good opportunity to go down there and just blow them out.
do they have guys out? Is that why they've been losing? I haven't been.
No, I got Zion on my fantasy team. I think in this he played 3 out of these 4 that they lost. He's played well though, at
Yeah.
least statistically. I don't know what else, like if he actually plays defense and stuff.
And then you got the revenge game against the Sixers in Philly. Philly's actually without Embiid and
And
without
Philly's on a little win streak.
yeah, they're playing a little bit better even without George.
Maxey scored 50 the other night and scored like 30 again last night.
Yeah, so they're playing better. And then you get the Cleveland game. So
And you get the Cleveland game, yeah.
yeah, so these next 3 games,
Cleveland may be without Garland though.
you played a team that took you to the wire, that you almost blew against the Pelicans, the 76ers, who played probably their best game of the season against you, and then the Caps. So it's a tough
The
little
Cavs, who you
stretch.
should be 2-0 against.
You should be.
I think. I know Mitchell went nuts, but we had the ball. We could have won the game.
Yeah, the reason you lost that wasn't one I felt like the Celtics lost. That was one I felt like Donovan Mitchell took from them.
Oh, Donovan Mitchell was awesome, but the Celtics had some opportunities to close that out.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
I think the Celtics have looked like the better team in both those games this year. In both their games against Cleveland, the head-to-head, I thought Boston was better both times.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah,
I thought so too. I think, I think for Cleveland, the Celtics are not a good matchup for them. Now, I will say this: Dean Wade didn't play in either one of them, and he's really been a big part of what they're doing, believe it or not. So I guess he helps.
yeah.
Uh,
Defensively, he's been actually really good.
yeah, no, he's been
Yeah,
really good, and he's probably the best defensive wing. So um, when when you don't have him and you try to match up against Tatum and Brown, although the second game the Celtics didn't have Brown, um,
that's right.
or Porzingis,
That's right.
so it makes it tough.
Any advice, questions, or things ready for me today, Jim? Or
I did not come prepared for that.
oh man,
I know I should have come prepared. I didn't. We'll get back into the advice column
that's messed
next
up
week.
because the listeners should know. Jimmy was texting me about like, hey, I got all these ideas.
Yeah, and then I
I
didn't.
guess
I
you
didn't
really
even
don't
come
have them.
prepared. I did not even come prepared. Yeah. Um, maybe we'll just, it seems like DEI is a hot subject and being blamed for everything. So maybe we'll find some questions on that. Are the Celtics, are they inconsistent because of DEI?
Yeah, those
Maybe we got to dive
policies.
into that.
Yeah, they're playing Sam Hauser too much.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
There's not enough like 27-year-old guys who can't dunk a basketball in the NBA, so they got to play them.
Yeah,
It's an equity issue.
that's absolutely
But he
right.
can dunk it, huh? Never mind.
Sometimes when his back's out, I don't know if he can. Um,
Yeah.
all right. Hey, Mike, anything you want to say? Anything to close? Or we just been rambling and need to get the fuck out of here?
Who's the guy on the Pelicans that played really good last time we played him?
Murray?
Murray was
Zion?
okay. No, it was the wing. The wing. He had like his
Oh,
best game of
Murray.
the year.
No, Murphy.
Murphy. That's the guy to watch out for. Let's
Yeah.
see how Trey Murphy plays. If he doesn't have that kind of impact, I think the Celtics win big.
Hope so. All right, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.